talk about a feature that I'm especially excited about, and that is the destructuring updates. So destructuring's been a very popular feature in Kotlin, but it's been based on position. And when it's based on position, it comes with some risks. So in order, the order of your variables needs to match the order of the components, right? So here we've got a data class named book, and we can destructure it into its individual components, like you can see I'm doing on the first line of this destructure function. And the problem is that it's easy to accidentally swap around some of these variable names and get the wrong components. Now, thankfully, the IDE does give us some help here. You can see we're getting a little bit of colors lighting up on this, telling us that these appear to be in the wrong order. But this only helps when the names actually match the components that are in a different position. So because I'm still using the author, title, and price, and those are the names of them up here, but they're not in the same order, this is first here and this is second here, it's able to recognize that, and that's what tells us that it appears to be the wrong one. So if we were to call these something different, however, this is not going to really help us out, right? Because this is based on the name of the parameter of the property in the data class. So you can see here, we don't get help in the IDE. One way that we could mitigate this is to use stronger types here. So for example, we could introduce a type just for the title and a type just for the author. And we'd have to go through and update them here in the book and update our constructor call as well. But then once we've done that, we can explicitly specify the types that we're expecting when we perform the destructuring down here. And that gives us the error right here that we're looking for. So we get a nice compile time error giving us a chance to notice this early. But especially when we're just using simple types here, like string, for example, then this can definitely be a gotcha. And one of the bigger risks is that we could introduce a new component in the middle of the list here. And even though our call to the book constructor is now giving us an error, notice that our destructuring assignment is really none the wiser. So if we were to fix the constructor call here and not change anything else, we don't have any broken code here. If we run this thing, you can see we won't actually notice anything's wrong until runtime. And even then, there's not any exception here. We would have to notice that the output is simply wrong right here, that the author and the price and all of these are completely off. And here we're just printing it out, right? So not a big deal, but if we were storing these in database columns, for example, it could certainly be quite a hassle to run a migration to reverse the damage that was caused, right? So there is potential for some big risks with the position-based destructuring. So in Kotlin 2.3.20, there's a new experimental feature that allows us to use name-based destructuring instead. And because it's experimental, of course, we're going to have to opt into it here. So I'm just going to add the opt-in, and it's got 3 different modes. And so I'm going to start with the one that's named complete. And this is going to give us a preview of what the Kotlin team expects this to look like in its final form. So this is kind of like as if we're opting into this thing completely. Got the Gradle sync there looking good. And with this update, you can see now we're getting these errors here in our destructuring assignment because the names that we've got don't match the names of the components. So to fix this, we could just use the same names as the components have. So we can come back through here and update each one of these to match. And now, even though you can see these are all in, they're in different order, but when we run this, we'll see that the variables were actually assigned the intended values. Now, you can see we do still get the warning in the IDE. So the inspection here in the IDE is not aware of the new feature. So if you turn this on, you're probably just going to want to disable that inspection. But again, the values are assigned exactly like we wanted. Now, if we do want to use a different name from the component, we can simply use an assignment like this, and that'll work. And it's worth noting here that when we're using the complete mode for this feature, like we're doing now, the syntax that you see here is really just a shorthand for the more explicit form of name-based destructuring. And let me show you what that looks like here. So even though the syntax highlighting here obviously isn't catching the val keywords, not distinguishing them, This is still completely valid code that the compiler is going to respect because we got the feature flag turned on. Now, if you still want to use the position-based destructuring that you've been used to, you'll still be able to do that. So let me reset this code with what we had before. To use position-based destructuring instead, we'll just use brackets instead of parentheses like this. And then we can give these variables whatever names we want, and it'll work the same as it had previously. All right, now, of course, this is a breaking change. So this is going to require a migration over time. And as I mentioned before, there are 3 modes that you can use when you enable this feature. So let's go back to our build file here. We will change this from complete to only syntax, and we'll give this a Gradle sync here. And with this, we can opt into the new syntax, including the explicit name-based destructuring here. But otherwise, it'll continue to behave as it has in the past. So you can use this as a first step toward using the new feature without requiring any changes to your existing code. And there's one more mode that you can use. It's called Name-Mismatch. So I'm just going to come back here and update this to Name-Mismatch. And this mode warns us when the names of our variables don't match the names of the components. I'm going to give this a Gradle sync again and come back to our destructuring. And I'm going to put this code back to the version that had the subtitle in it. And now we're going to get a warning, not just in the IDE, we were getting that one before, but we're also going to get it from the compiler. So here you can see we're getting these compiler warnings as well. So if we were to build this on the command line via Gradle, we would see the warnings in the output. So this would be a great setting if you wanted to collect reports about all the places that you'll need to update in order to successfully migrate in the future. So especially if you collect these warnings in reports on your CI server, for example. So that's what's happening with the new destructuring updates. And like I said, it's still experimental and there is a full migration path planned out for it, but you can opt into it today. So let me know what you think about this feature. Do you like the syntax? Have you had any horror stories from using position-based destructuring, or is this something that's not really been a problem for you? Let me know.